Hi, I'm Ed.
I'm Ashley. We're in Los Angeles.
And we're attending Microsoft's Professional Developers Conference, and you're watching Ed and Ashley's 5-Minute Show. Hello, I am here with Jennifer Marsman from Microsoft. And Jennifer, what do you do at Microsoft? What's your job title?
I'm what's called a Developer Evangelist, which is probably the most ridiculous title you've ever heard. But it's actually one of the coolest jobs in the company. My job is to learn Microsoft's new technologies for developers, and then I go out and talk to people about them. So I cover everything from, just basically everything in .NET is my playground. I cover everything from presentation level technologies like WPF and Silverlight, to WCF and Windows Workflow, to developing for the Surface, to developing for the Xbox, to Azure development and developing on the cloud, just a wide variety of things. Database development, web development, anything kind of in that realm for developers is my domain. So I learn these new technologies, and then I go out and speak to people about them. So I speak at user groups and conferences, and I also work with large corporations to help them understand how Microsoft technologies could help them meet their business needs.
Awesome. So at the keynotes, we've been seeing a lot of these different technologies. Azure is coming out, Silverlight is, all this new stuff, Windows 7. So, okay, what are some of the things that you're telling developers about these technologies?
Great question. One of the things I'm really excited about is Windows Azure, which was just released here at the PDC. I know Azure is actually fabulous. Cloud computing is such a new thing, and it's really very exciting. It's all about not having to have your own data center, but instead utilizing the cloud to store your services and your data. So the way to think about it is kind of like electricity. It's that same type of model where everyone doesn't have their own electrical generator in their house, right? It's just a service that we pay for. So and then you just pay for the amount that you use. So if I leave the light on all the time, I'm going to pay more, and if I always turn it off when I leave the room, I'm going to pay less. So you only pay for what you use. So it's a very similar model with Windows Azure. And there's a couple of scenarios where I think it really shines. First is for startup companies. If you're a startup, then having to invest a whole bunch of money in a whole bunch of machines, and load balancing and getting all of that stuff set up to host a website can be a huge investment up front when you're a young company, you don't have a lot of money. So doing a solution where you're in the cloud means that you can just push all your stuff up to the cloud, and then as your business grows, you can just crank up the dial and have it scale to the amount of space you're using. It's really amazing. And the other thing where I think it really makes sense is a scenario where the traffic to your website tends to be very cyclical in nature. So for instance, one great example is something like an MLB.com, MajorLeagueBaseball.com.
Right.
With Major League Baseball, we've looked at the trends on that site, and when it's when it's in the middle of baseball season and World Series and all that, and at the beginning of the season when everyone's getting their fantasy baseball teams ready, the traffic to the site is way up here.
Yeah.
And then when off season in the winter and stuff, traffic is way down here. Yeah. And so what you tend to see is if they had built a data center to host all that stuff, then everything they're going to have to pay for this maximum load. Or think of the scenario of Domino's Pizza that was talked about at the PDC keynote today. They have to handle the max load of all the people that order food on Super Bowl Sunday. Then everybody gets pizza on Super Bowl Sunday. And situations like Halloween and those days when nobody wants to cook and everyone gets pizza all on the same day, their data centers have to be able to handle that. So they decided, it actually makes a lot more sense because their traffic, again, way up there on Super Bowl Sunday, way down here on random Tuesday, Right. So instead of having to always pay for, this max amount of buying all these machines, and then the ongoing costs of cooling all those machines, having people to take care of all those machines, patching the machines, all of that extra stuff, it's so much work. So having a solution like Azure allows them to just turn up the dial on the days when they know they're going to be really busy, turn it back down on another day, and then you're only paying for what you use. So it's a really cost-effective thing that can save you money. Yeah.
That is so awesome. So that's really cool.
I'm excited about it too.
So along with doing all this really cool technology stuff, I've kind of heard that you're also pretty knowledgeable about Microsoft interviews.
Interviews,
so
yes, the interview.
If you're going to be interviewing with Microsoft, what is maybe the one thing that you need to remember and that you need to do?
Oh gosh, I actually have an answer for this. My #1 interview tip for a Microsoft interview is never stop talking. And I know that sounds ridiculous, but there's actually a couple things you get out of that. Number one, if you're, I think I tend to get really excited, and so I'll blah, 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 and I'll just kind of go off, and I think, Ed, you're the same way. So having that kind of, enthusiasm bubble over really shows your passion for technology and shows that you're a good candidate that's really going to be excited to get up and go to work and that kind of thing. So if you're naturally an enthusiastic person, I think that shines through, and the never stop talking thing really works well for you. The other things that makes it work well is when you're talking, you should be asking a lot of questions. So sometimes there are purposely vague questions that they ask you, because in the real world, when we're working through real world problems, there aren't concrete answers to things. So a lot of times we have a general idea that we want to move in this direction, but we don't know exactly what we want to accomplish. Or we know kind of what we want to accomplish, but not exactly how to get there, you know? So seeing them go through the process of asking those questions and figuring out how to deal with an ambiguous situation is a really good skill to see in a candidate. And then another thing you get out of it is, let's say you're stuck on a question, and following that never stop talking rule. If you stop talking, you can kind of get the deer in headlights appearance. So now all of a sudden, oh, you know what, I don't know the answer right away, and you kind of freeze. If you keep talking, that actually accomplishes two things. One, oftentimes talking through the problem out loud helps generate new, fresh ideas in your mind. And two, at least you're showing the interview candidate that what you're thinking, your thought process, because that's what they're really trying to measure. So if there's a question you don't know the answer to, saying something like, well, the first thing that popped into my head was X, but I know that that's not right because of these reasons. So at least they see that you're thinking about, and there are possibilities that you're considering, but you're rejecting them for good reasons. So all of those things can really contribute too. So kind of all of those things are a collective bundle of goodness. Just never stop talking. Worked for me.
Warm fuzzies.
Yeah.
Well, Jennifer, thank you so much.
Oh, thank you for having me.
And thank you for watching this episode of Ed and Ashley's 5-Minute Show.